Testing, 1, 2, 3. There it is. It's working. Hello, boys and girls. How are you doing this week? We have some brand new candidates in the race. The one we're going to look at, I think he had already announced by last week, George Pataki, former governor of New York. He is who we are going to focus on in the first segment of the program today. And of course, some others have jumped in this week. I'll tell you who they are. Wait until you hear what the UN wants to do with Israel. This is going to anger you, at least I think it is. We will certainly take a look at that. Harry Reid is up to his old tricks in the Senate. We'll talk about that. Hillary Clinton is doing everything she can to change the subject out there on the campaign trail. We're going to take a look at something that she said just recently. And things have gone from bad to worse for Marilyn Mosby down in Baltimore. We're going to take a look at that. And what does the new Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, have in mind for your firearm freedom? We're going to talk about that, all of that, right here, right now on The Ray Warner Show. I am your host, Ray Warner. Thank you so much for listening in today. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, if you just feel the need to rant or vent, as I do, you feel free. The email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. As I stated, former governor of New York, George Pataki, is jumping into this race. I'm not exactly sure why. He certainly is a long shot for the Republican nomination in the White House. But he's in nonetheless, and some others have jumped in. Of course, Martin O'Malley jumped in this past week. We had Lindsey Graham, Lincoln Chafee, and Rick Perry have all jumped in. Lindsey Graham, you know, I'm not exactly sure why he's running. He's another super long shot. And Lincoln Chafee, this is the guy, I had to look this guy up. I didn't even know who he was. He is the former governor of Rhode Island. I think he's building a platform on something about transitioning America to the metric system or something like that. I don't know. It's just, this guy's just, he's another long shot. And then Rick Perry, former governor of Texas, jumped into the race. And anyway, as promised, we did Rick Santorum last week, and we're just going to keep rolling right along, doing these candidates in order. So here is the abridged version of the announcement speech by Governor George Pataki.
Thank you all for being here. God bless you. You're the reason that I am here this morning, to help your futures be better futures. We're here in Exeter, New Hampshire, birthplace of the Republican Party, Ronald Reagan's party, who restored Americans' belief in ourselves and in the transcendent value of freedom. The freedom that has given us the greatest country the world has ever known. The same freedom that I fear is at risk today from an ever more powerful, more intrusive government in Washington. It is to preserve and protect that freedom for us that I stand here today. It is to preserve and protect that freedom that this morning I announce I am a candidate for the Republican nomination for President of the United States. Too many Americans feel the best days of America are behind us. That our children aren't going to have the same opportunities that we did. Government has grown too big, too powerful, too expensive, too intrusive. Washington politicians and bureaucrats believe they know better than us and can tell us how to live our lives, from what health care each of us must have, to trying to dictate to every child in every school what they must learn. A young mother seeking to start a small business is inundated with oppressive paperwork and regulations and gives up. A small manufacturer seeking to build the next plant and create American jobs is faced with excessive taxation and forced to build that factory overseas. Too many Americans feel the path of opportunity is closed to them. We must make sure it's not. The problems we face are real, but I've never been one to dwell on problems. I'm a solutions guy. There's one former member of Congress lobbying for every current member. And the first thing I would do is say that if you ever served one day in Congress, you will never be a lobbyist. There will be a lifetime ban on members of Congress ever becoming lobbyists. I'd repeal oppressive laws like Obamacare and end Common Core. I'd eliminate excessive taxes that crush small business. I'd throw out an incomprehensible tax code written by lawyers at the direction of lobbyists in the interest of the powerful and replace it with a simpler, lower rates that are fair for all of us. And I'd shrink the size of the federal workforce, starting with the bureaucrats overseeing Obamacare, and I'd fire every current IRS employee abusing government power to discriminate on the basis of politics or religion. That is not America. And let's let every Washington politician know, from now on, you're going to live under the same rules and laws that we do. No exemptions for politicians from laws they impose on us. No special rules for the powerful. Our Justice Department will treat all fairly and uphold the Constitution. No one will be above the law, not even if you're a former Secretary of State whose name happens to be Clinton. Liberals have so much compassion for the poor that they keep creating more of them. When I took office, we had every poverty program government could think of. And yet, 1 in 11 of every single New York State resident was on welfare. Not on Medicaid or disability. 1 in 11 of every man, woman, and child in the state of New York, from the tip of Long Island to the shores of Lake Erie, were on welfare. The American dream did not seem real to them. But after 12 years of my conservative policies, we replaced dependency with opportunity, resignation with hope, mere existence with dreams, a welfare check with a paycheck. When I left office, over 1 million fewer people were on welfare than when I began. That's what our policies can do. I was governor of New York on September 11th. It was a horrible time for us, and I'm sure for all of you as well. The personal loss was devastating. It still is. I saw up close the horrible consequences of too many believing that because radical Islam was thousands of miles away, across an ocean, that we were safe in America. Sadly, it wasn't true then, and it's not true now. The most important thing government does is to provide for the security and safety of its citizens. Sadly, Washington is not doing that. I will not forget the lesson of September 11th. I fear too many in Washington already have. To protect us, first we must secure the border. Yes, I'm the proud product of immigrants, but we must know that everyone coming to America is coming here legally, and that everyone coming here is coming not to harm us, but to be a part of a better America. And in the face of an increasingly dangerous world, this is not the time to weaken America's military. It's time to strengthen our military, not so that we can use it, but so that we don't have to use it. A strong America is a safe America. Ronald Reagan proved that peace through strength is more than a slogan. Peace through strength is a policy that works. Weakness, equivocation, and false promises lead only to chaos, brutality, and war. The world is a better place when America is strong and a champion of liberty and freedom. We will stand with our ally Israel, a democracy on the front lines of terror and barbarism. We will make sure the #1 sponsor of state terror in the world, Iran, never has a nuclear weapon. And yes, if necessary, American forces will be used to actually defeat and destroy ISIS so they can pose no threat to us here. We will destroy radical Islam's ability to attack us over there before they have the chance to attack us here. To all our veterans, raise your hands. We salute you. God bless you. Yes, the challenges of a large and oppressive government in Washington are real, but this is still America. The power of freedom is real, and compared to those challenges we've overcome in the past, these seem like trivial things. I have no doubt we will rise above these as well. Today, those in the other party, instead of offering ideas, seek to divide. When you have no solutions, instead you offer fear. Everyone here understands it's the men and women who go to work, pay the bills, and follow the rules that are the backbone of this country. We are the party of the middle class. Unless by middle class they mean someone who left the White House dead broke and 10 years later had $100 million. Unless by middle class they mean someone who charges a poor country $500,000 for a half-hour speech. That's their party's candidate. She speaks for the middle class. They are the party of privilege. We are the party of the middle class. They are the party of the past. We must be the party of the future. I have seen what Americans can do when we understand we share a common dream, a common future, a common destiny. I know that working together with the support of a government dedicated to restoring freedom rather than restraining it, we will once again astonish the world with what we can accomplish. Stand with us. Let us go forward together. I guarantee you the 21st century is going to be America's greatest century. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
So that was George Pataki. He found a bunch of people that are fired up about him running for president. I kind of have issues with this guy, and the only reason why is because I take a look at New York, where he's the former governor. He was governor of New York for 12 years. And you heard him say in there about business and taxes and red tape. You heard him say this.
A young mother seeking to start a small business is inundated with oppressive paperwork and regulations and gives up. A small manufacturer seeking to build the next plant and create American jobs is faced with excessive taxation and forced to build that factory overseas.
Okay, then that's true. I mean, if you were going to start a business and you had any of the 50 states to choose from, would New York be first on your list to run to and start a business? You know, New York, you need a license to take a leak in New York. And I don't know why, if this guy was governor of New York for 12 years, that's still the case. He claims to be a Republican. He claims to be a conservative. But he kind of reminds me of Mitt Romney. And this was one of the problems I had with Mitt Romney. He was another Republican elected governor in a blue state. But I can play sound bites for you of Mitt Romney saying that they're going to have a judge allow a minor child to an abortion if her parents say no. I can actually play that soundbite for you. And this guy claims to be a conservative Republican. Now, Scott Walker, on the other hand, a Republican who was elected in the blue state of Wisconsin, he went in there and took care of business. So much so, I mean, they hated Scott Walker. They tried 3 times to get him kicked out of there. And he beat them all 3 times. He beat back the unions. He took them head on. Chris Christie started out really good in New Jersey, another Republican in a blue state. He took on the unions. But, after the bromance on the beach, that kind of did it for me. But these Republican governors who go into blue states, Arnold Schwarzenegger was another one. He had a big opportunity out in California to do some good there. And I think he really wanted to, and then he just got opposed at every turn and just kind of checked out and served out the rest of his governorship. But if that is the case, if it is impossible to start a business in New York, if the taxes are crippling, if what about the gun rights in New York? You can't even buy a handgun in New York. That's insane. What part of infringed don't those people get? And if George Pataki was governor for 12 years, why was that not fixed? So that's one of the issues I have with a Republican governor going into a blue state, and then the blue state kind of remains the same. But I looked for some comments by George Pataki about gun control and about abortion and things like that, some of my pet issues. And I really didn't find much. So, I don't know. I wish he would have done more as governor that we could look at. You saw you heard him in the speech say that, we brought hope and we brought this and we brought that. He really didn't say anything substantive in that speech about what he did in New York and how he intends to transfer any kind of success he's claiming in New York to the rest of the country. Now, Mike Huckabee made a comment about what the left is trying to do with this whole gender bending, allowing boys into girls' locker rooms and just weirdo things like that. And he made a comment that Wolf Blitzer went on CNN and played for George Pataki to get his reaction. And this is how that went down.
I want you to listen precisely to what he said. This emerging right after Caitlyn Jenner's announcement yesterday. Watch this.
Now, I wish someone had told me when I was in high school that I could have felt like a woman when it came time to take showers in PE. I'm pretty sure I would have found my feminine side and said, Coach, I think I'd rather shower with the girls today.
All right, so what's your reaction? It's getting a lot of buzz out there. Are his comments appropriate?
Well, I think it was meant in humor. Obviously, he didn't mean it seriously. But I think the more important point is we should give people their dignity and let them make their own decisions. People often make decisions that I don't agree with. But in a government where it's supposed to be of the people, if someone chooses a path that's different from mine, we should respect that as opposed to mocking it or in any way trying to prevent that.
So Pataki says we shouldn't mock Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner, and I agree. We shouldn't mock him. Why would we? Why would we mock anyone who is in serious need of help mentally? As obviously as Jenner. I called him Caitlyn. Why? That's his name. I think. Did he change it legally? Yeah, No, I don't care. If he changes his name to Caitlyn, he can change his name to Caitlyn if he wants to be called Caitlyn. But, and I'll refer to him as Caitlyn. I mean, he'll always be Bruce Jenner to me, I guess, but, I mean, whatever. But, it's the left, in my opinion, that's making fun of him. No, the left. I'm not going to call him her or she. No, that was CNN did that. I don't think anyone on Fox News is going that far. Maybe. I haven't heard. No, we had some sound bites on CNN. We had some sound bites from people on Go ahead and just pick one. Play one of them.
Caitlyn has said that she wants to be a voice, wants to be an activist.
Yeah, Caitlyn has said that she wants to be a voice and an activist. I don't even know who that is, but that's from CNN, right? Yeah, well, he's making fun of him. He has to be making fun of him to refer to him as a she. No, it has to be. Okay, let me ask you this. Bruce Jenner wakes up one day and says, since I was a kid, since I was 10 years old, I've always thought, I'm a king. I'm a king. From now on, refer to me as King Jenner. So if these guys went around calling him Your Majesty, wouldn't they be making fun of him? Well, yes, Your Majesty. To me, that's ridiculing him. No, that's ridiculing him. Maybe that's what they think, but it's still ridiculing. Yeah, you know what? I don't want to talk about the whole Jenner thing. I really don't. I don't care. I haven't really followed the story. All I know is Bruce Jenner mutilated himself, or is in the process of mutilating himself. That's all I know. Just because you cut stuff off and sew stuff on. What if he woke up one morning and said, you know what? Since I was 10 years old, I've always believed I was a deer. And he finds some surgeon insane enough to cut his hands off and sew on hoofs. Does that make him a deer? No. No. Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner, whatever he wants to call himself. Let me ask you this. Does he fear prostate cancer or breast cancer? You answer that, and that's the answer to your question. He's a man. He was born a male, and he'll die a male. He'll always be a male. He can mutilate himself, but he'll always be male. That's all there is to it. He could change his name to Caitlyn. I'll call him Caitlyn. But he's still a man. We'll be back, folks. Stay right there.
You're listening to The Rainwater Show. Resistance is futile.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
21 Signs of Doomsday. God said, man said.com. Noah's Ark, fact or fiction. Geologists say yes to crucifixion. Science says eat butter. God said, man said.com. Scientists study speaking in tongues. Hours of text and audio. God said, man said.com. Doctors flummox for what they found in female brains. St. Peter's fish, hellworms, extraterrestrials amongst us. God said, man said.com.
A creative experience unlike any other is waiting for you at Hobby Lobby. Arts and crafts, fabric, scrapbooking, floral, home accents, and so much more. Come and explore Hobby Lobby and find more than you could have ever imagined. Inspiration, innovation, and creation all in one place. Everything you need to bring your creativity to life is here at Hobby Lobby.
Welcome back, folks. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Ray Warner Show, hosted by me, Ray Warner. If you want to email the show, if you have any comments, any questions, any concerns, any feedback, feel free. The email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. Now, as I said, the UN is getting ready to do something that's going to really anger you. It angers me. The UN wants to add Israel to a list of murderers. This is true. Now, and of course, who's the lone guy that I'm reading about anyway? Maybe there's more, but Senator Ted Cruz is getting involved, and he has actually written a letter to the Secretary General of the United Nations, and I think in this letter he is expressing his concern, or let's just say outrage, over what the UN is contemplating. And what it is there's a group, the Human Rights Watch, and this group is actually petitioning the Secretary General. I think the guy's name is Ban Ki-moon or something. And they want Israel added to a list of human rights violators. And this list, there's people on this list like Boko Haram, like the Islamic State, like the Taliban, and they want Israel added to this list. And they say it's because they're targeting children, which we know is not true. Israel does not target children. But of course, we know that in the war last year between Hamas and Israel, that Hamas over in the Gaza Strip, they were using children and women and other civilians to shield their weapons. They hide their missiles in mosques and in apartments and in schools and hospitals, anywhere where they can maximize collateral damage should Israel be forced to take out their rockets. This is what Hamas does. And so it is Hamas that is causing the children in Gaza, the Palestinian kids and women and other civilians, to die in this conflict. Israel goes far above and beyond what any nation has ever done to try to minimize civilian casualties, to the point of calling and texting people in Gaza in their own language and telling them to get out because we're about to bomb the place where you're at. This is what they do. And then they drop leaflets, they drop shock bombs to clear a building, they do everything they can to minimize casualties. Israel has its Iron Dome to protect its citizens. You know, some rockets fired by Hamas land in Gaza. Some of them do that. And you know what Israel does? Sometimes their Iron Dome takes out those rockets. Israel deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for the way that they have gone about executing this war. And I am so glad that there is someone in the Senate with some common sense that is willing to stand up to this ridiculousness of the UN being petitioned to add Israel to what basically amounts to a list of shame, as it were, of terror groups. Al-Qaeda is even on that list. Other countries, Yemen is on this list, Syria, Sudan. Israel has no business being on this list. And God bless you, Senator Ted Cruz, for taking this fight right to the UN. Now, back on the home front, the more things change, the more they stay the same. This article I found in the Politico. You'll be interested to know that instead of providing resources to defeat the Islamic State, they could provide pay raises for our troops as well, the Democrats are playing games over in Congress because they want more funding for things like the IRS and the EPA. And who is spearheading this movement but our buddy, the minority leader, Harry Reid. And that's why I say the more things change, the more they stay the same. Here we are throwing this bum out of his position of majority leader, putting the Republicans in the majority, and this guy, Harry Reid, is still doing everything he can to shut down Congress. So this is from the Politico. Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid is vowing to use Senate rules to block the entire appropriations process, an aggressive new phase in the Democrats' legislative strategy that could invite charges that he's creating the same kind of gridlock Reid accused Republicans of when they were in the minority. For Democrats, the risks are worth it. By playing hardball this summer, they're attempting to force Republicans to the negotiating table and hasten a deal to raise strict spending caps, expanding funds for programs like education and infrastructure, among other Democratic priorities. And ironically, being in the minority may put his party in a better position to get what he wants. If the GOP refuses to negotiate and a government shutdown occurs, the blame will likely fall to conservatives who control both chambers of Congress. Well, you think? I mean, that's what happened when they didn't control both chambers. Every time the word Congress was spoken in the media, they meant the House of Representatives. And every time they said Congress or the House of Representatives or conservatives or Republicans were shutting down the government, what they meant to say is that the House of Representatives passed some like 400 some odd bills, but Harry Reid refused to bring them all to a vote. That's what they meant to say in the media, but that never got said. What they said is that, of course, Republicans were the ones shutting down the government, which I don't care. I say shut it down. But, of course, the Republicans, we know how much they just panic every time they get a little pressure put on them, especially by the media. At a closed-door Democrat leadership meeting Tuesday night, Reid vowed that his caucus wouldn't allow a single spending measure to get a floor vote. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, we've heard that before, right? And on Thursday at noon, his top lieutenants announced their party's intentions to filibuster and prevent Republicans from even calling up the spending measures. So this is Harry Reid doing what he does best, just shutting down the Congress. And I think it's all to protect Obama, because the more bills Reid can stop and stonewall, the fewer bills Obama is forced to veto, which will make him look bad. So that's all Reid's doing is Obama's bidding, I'm sure. But as we know, Republicans will get the blame anyway. Hillary is also trying to blame Republicans. Did you hear this? Hillary is accusing Republicans of suppressing voting. Listen to this nonsense.
Today, Republicans are systematically and deliberately trying to stop millions of American citizens from voting.
Today, Republicans are systematically and deliberately trying to stop millions of Americans from voting. That's a lie. That is not true, Hillary Clinton. That is an absolute lie. How can Republicans stop millions of Americans from voting? How could they? Ted Cruz and Mike Lee. I'll even throw in Lindsey Graham, John Boehner, Mitch McConnell. These guys are all getting together and sitting around and looking at one another and saying, they're rubbing their hands together. How can we get millions of Americans to not vote? That's what they're doing. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. No one is trying to keep American citizens from voting. What they want to stop, Mrs. Clinton, is voting fraud. That's what they want to stop. Why is it that you cannot bring an ID to the voting booth with you? Why? What is so difficult about that? But she went on.
What part of democracy are they afraid of?
They're not afraid at all of democracy, Hillary. What they're afraid of is people like Obama, registering entire cemeteries to vote. What they're afraid of is voting fraud. What they're afraid of is people voting 3 or 4 times. We've heard the stories, right? You guys can't win in the arena of ideas. The only way you guys can win is if you cheat. And that's what we don't want you to do. We don't want you to cheat. We know that you're the minority. You know that you're the minority. Conservative Americans are the majority in this country. If we vote, we win every time. When conservatives come out to vote, we win. Every single time we win in landslides. We know that, and you know that. And you don't like that. So that's why you need voter fraud.
I call on Republicans at all levels of government, with all manner of ambition, to stop fear-mongering about a phantom epidemic of election fraud.
Fear-mongering about a phantom of election fraud? Is that what you had the unmitigated gall to say, Hillary? A phantom? Here's one of your phantoms right here.
Yes, I voted twice.
Yeah, you heard her proudly talk about how she voted twice. We found that that's not the truth. You know who that woman is? She's a poll worker. She works at the polls. And she didn't vote twice. She boasted about how she voted twice, but she didn't vote twice. She voted something like 8 times. Listen to this.
I absolutely voted an absentee ballot for her, and she went to the polls herself. Marcus Baring lives here. Joseph Jones is my brother. He's here from time to time. I am Montez's power of attorney. I voted for her in her absence.
So were these all legal votes in your mind?
Absolutely legal votes. Absolutely.
So you'll fight this?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I'll fight him. For Mr. Obama and for Mr. Obama's right to sit as President of the United States.
There's your phantom, Hillary. That woman voted 8 times. She voted for herself by absentee ballot, and then she voted for herself at the polls, and then she voted by absentee ballot for like 6 other people. So-and-so who lives here, and so-and-so who's my brother, and so-and-so by power of attorney, and blah, blah, blah. How many people does one, and those are only the ones we know about. That's what we don't want, Hillary. We don't want all, this is the phantom that you're talking about. This is Miss Phantom right here, a voting criminal, and she works at the polls. So who's going to stop her? Who's going to stop her from doing it? This is what has to change. The absentee ballots, the Democrats pushing for voting without ID. You know what Hillary said in that speech? She wants your voter registration to be automatic when you turn 18. Bing! As soon as you turn 18, graduate high school, your voter registration is automatic. That's what she wants. No ID, no nothing. And you keep hearing these people say, these Democrats, how Republicans are trying to suppress the people of color from voting. How in the world is that suppressing people of color from voting to ask them to bring an ID? They can get to the polls and they can bring their ID and vote 1 time, and that's it. This is one of those things I am just so sick of hearing Democrats turn this argument around. There is absolutely nothing wrong or sinister about asking people to bring a ID to the polls. You bring your ID and you vote. If you're an American citizen, you bring your ID, you vote 1 time and you're done. You know what I think we ought to do? I think we ought to do the ink thing, like they do in Iraq, or like they did in Bush's Iraq anyway. I think they ought to do that. I think you ought to stick your finger in ink when you vote. The button ought to be at the bottom of the ink. That's what they should do. And if you got ink on your finger, you're done. You're finished. Democrats do everything they can do to cheat at the polls and then try to turn it around and say Republicans are sitting around trying to purposefully suppress votes. Minorities like Cruz and Marco Rubio, they're trying to figure out how to suppress minority votes. Ridiculous. Now, as you've probably heard, Pam Geller is she's a hunted woman right now. There was a terrorist killed who was on a mission to behead her. And she went on CNN with Erin Burnett. And Erin Burnett, listened to this exchange. This is what you call educating a journalist. Okay, this is what you call taking a journalist to school. Listen to Erin Burnett and her dumb question, and Pam Geller's brilliant answer.
The Southern Poverty Law Center, as you're well aware, has described your group, the American Freedom Defense Initiative, as what they say, quote, is an active anti-Muslim group. They track hate groups in this country. They describe you as, quote, the anti-Muslim movement's most visible and flamboyant figurehead. Again, they track hate groups. They're putting you on that list. Nothing justifies a beheading or a beheading plot, but it's important to note this. I mean, are you stoking the flames? Do you, on some level, relish being the target of these attacks?
Relish being the target. Who self-promotes to get killed? That's the first thing. The second thing is the Southern Poverty Law Center. Really, Aaron? Since when? Who designated them the arbiter of anything? They're an uber-left group. They don't track jihadist groups. They don't track groups that actually target for slaughter. They track patriots. They track veterans. They track defense groups like myself, and their members have actually targeted and tried to slaughter family groups and leaders like Tony Perkins of family groups, and even the shooter in North Carolina who shot 3 Muslims over a parking dispute was a member of the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's who you're using against me? Why don't we talk about the accomplishments and the accolades that my group got? Why do you use the Southern Poverty Law Center, a notorious uber-left communist group, to slime me, to smear me? I'm the hunted one. I'm the hunted one. This is incredible to me.
All right, as I said, I think nothing justifies a beheading, but I do think the question was a fair one.
So once again, somehow the left manages to take the victim in this and turn it around. Something you'll never hear them do when it comes to, say, rape. They'll never say to the victim, you know, well, are you relishing this attack? No, of course not. How ridiculous is it to think that a victim, somebody who's being hunted, as Pam Geller is, I mean, she's on the list now. This is it. And, you know, and there's only one way off the list. She will be hunted for the rest of her life. She will have some Islamic nut jobs out there trying to behead her for the rest of her life. And they're going to say to her, to the victim, do you relish being targeted by Islamic nut jobs? They're going to ask her that? I mean, there is just no decency with these people on the left. And if I haven't made my position clear, you know, I do not support Pam Geller and having these Muhammad drawing cartoon contests. Has nothing to do with fearing an Islamic attack and everything to do with just, you know, that is not the way to win hearts and minds. I would, you know, it's just not what I would do, and I would counsel her not to do it. But it is her right to do it. And if she wants to do it, so be it. And I support her right to do it. I don't know what her motivation is, other than to, you know, just prove a point, to just say, hey, we're Americans and we can do this, and kind of rub your face in it. You know, whatever. It is her right to do. And she can afford the security, and that's great. But I would, you know, it's just not something I would do, and it has nothing to do with fearing Islam and everything to do with, you know, that's just not the way to win hearts and minds. That's all. That's my opinion. And this I found very interesting. The Freddie Gray autopsy has been completed. It was released to Marilyn Mosby's office. As you know, Marilyn Mosby is the Baltimore state's attorney. And she is not letting the police see it. She's not letting the defense see it. She is actually trying to move, petition the court to keep this thing under wraps. I found this article. Where did I find this? This is from the Baltimore Sun. Listen to this. Baltimore State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby plans to seek a protective order that would block the release of Freddie Gray's autopsy report and other sensitive documents as she prosecutes the 6 police officers involved in his arrest. Mosby told the Baltimore Sun that prosecutors have a duty to ensure a fair and impartial process for all parties involved and will not be baited into litigating this case through the media. Yeah, this is Marilyn Mosby. This is the woman who for like 30 minutes ranted on the steps in front of all the planet about all of the facts of the case, all of the evidence, and the whole, I mean, after her 24-hour investigation, by the way, this is the woman who refuses to litigate the case in the media all of a sudden. I mean, what a joke this woman has become. Does she even understand the law? How do you become a lawyer and you don't know that if you have evidence as a prosecutor that you have to share that with the defense? How does she not know this? I know that, and I'm not a lawyer. But an attorney for one of the officers said, the effort shows that there is something in that autopsy report that they're trying to hide. Gee, I wonder what that could be. You think Freddie Gray injured himself? Is that what it's going to say? We were told that his spinal cord was 80% severed. Are we going to find out that that's not true? Are we going to find out that he could walk before he was put in the van and somehow injured himself in the van? Mrs. Mosby is one who did an announcement discussing what she said the evidence was in a nationally televised speech, said Ivan Bates, who represents Sergeant Alicia White. Now that it is time to turn over the evidence, to ask for a protective order is beyond disingenuous. It's as if she wants to do everything to make sure our clients do not get a fair trial. Baltimore's chief prosecutor declared her intention to seek the protective order in a court filing Monday. She also asked for more time to respond to defense motions that she and her office be removed from the case and that the case be tried outside Baltimore. And I think they really need to do this. She has so screwed this thing up. She's just, she is one of the crazy rioters who just happens to be a lawyer, who just happens to be the prosecuting attorney. That's all she is. She's one of the crazy rioters in that position. You can see it. I mean, you could just hear her in her voice what an angry, angry woman she is. And she's the one with the power. And within 24 hours of getting the case, she had these people charged, and one of them with murder, which is absolutely ridiculous, will never stick. And she needs to be removed from the case. Her office needs to be removed from the case. It needs to be tried outside of Baltimore. The move is the latest effort by Mosby's office to restrict information in the high-profile case. Her office has also sought a gag order to prevent participants from discussing the case in public, and has broken with a long-standard practice by not giving a copy of the autopsy report to Baltimore police. So she doesn't want the case talked about publicly, not after she went on her 30-minute rant about everything that she believes was the evidence in the case. In response to Mosby's latest filing, defense attorneys said Wednesday that they have been denied an outline of evidence and claims against the officers and have not been allowed to inspect a knife that was taken from Gray during his arrest. Well, I wonder why that is. Remember, she was trying to say that the knife was legal in Maryland? But then we later found out, yeah, it might be legal in Maryland, but it was illegal in Baltimore? This woman has no idea what she's doing. It's amazing watching this. Bates said the protective order would allow only prosecutors and defense attorneys to see the documents and could require the court to seal all new filings that make reference to information in the documents. And that way, he said, it would be more restrictive than a gag order. Nobody would know anything but the state and the defense, so they would totally hide it from the public, Bates said. If your case is as good as you say it was, why don't you just show the evidence? Good question. Why don't you do that, Mosby? You can't holler and say, I'm about accountability for the citizens, and then run around filing for a protective order. This is how screwed up this whole thing has become. Mosby has no idea. She cannot tell the difference between municipal and state law. Not only that, she thinks that she can just sit on this, hoard all of the evidence to herself, not allow the defense attorneys to inspect the knife, not allow them copies of the autopsy report. What does she think she's going to accomplish by this? She has so screwed this case up. And it definitely needs, she needs to recuse herself, or it just needs to be taken from her. It just needs to be taken from her before she does any more damage. It's absolutely ridiculous what is going on in Baltimore. We'll be back, folks. Stay right there.
This is the Ray Warner Show, with a podcast every day, unless we have technical problems, but that never happens.
Are you concerned about your privacy? Identity theft? Corporate eavesdropping? Who's listening in on your confidential calls? Silent Circle's innovative suite of encrypted communication services allows you the privacy you need and the ease of use you deserve. We've built a customized system focused on security, simplicity, and service, fashioned from the ground up by our team of world-renowned experts with no logging, no data farming, and no backdoors of any kind for anyone. When a Silent Circle subscriber makes a phone call, sends a text, or exchanges a file with another Silent Circle member, that transmission is encrypted, peer-to-peer, end-to-end, direct from your own mobile device or personal computer. With the addition of OutCircle Access, You can even call individuals outside the circle knowing you're still encrypted to and from the silent network. Whether you're a small business concerned with corporate espionage, a governmental organization tasked to safeguard sensitive operations, or an individual protecting your family, you can trust Silent Circle's user-friendly apps and services to provide you with an affordable alternative to the risk you've had to accept until now. Silent Circle's groundbreaking global platform is the world's standard for secure mobile communications. Send a secure text across town or whisper in someone's ear 10,000 miles away. Silent Circle has revolutionized how the world communicates securely. Get in the circle.
I came home last night and my door was smashed open. It's like they knew right where to go. Like they'd been in my house before. They got my cameras, the silver, the coins. My husband's beautiful old shotgun. They took my jewelry. I can't believe it. It's all gone.
Each year, more than 4 million homes are burglarized in the U.S. Keep your valuables safe and secure with a safe that gives you an extra margin of protection. A Liberty safe is built tough and offers the most technologically advanced security features available. Plus, Liberty safes are independently certified for residential security, and they're built right here in the U.S. Don't take a chance when it comes to your home security. Purchase a Liberty safe for the things you value most.
Some things can be replaced. Some just can't.
To learn more, go to libertysafe.com.
Across this country, people are waking up and saying what we're doing is not working. People are hurting tragically, and we need to turn this country around. There is a better way, a brighter future. How do we win? How do we inspire young people? Number one, we tell the truth. Defend the Constitution. All of it. Defend the First Amendment, the right to free speech, the right to a free press, the right to freedom of religion, and that means, among other things, not having the IRS ask citizens, tell me the content of your prayers. We need to stand for the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. We need to stand for the Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, the privacy of every American. Every child deserves an opportunity to have an excellent education regardless of your race, your class, your creed, where you come from. Every child deserves a fair chance at the American dream. We need to audit the Federal Reserve. We need to abolish the IRS. We need to stop bankrupting our country. We can either choose to keep our head down, to not rock the boat, to not stand for anything, or we can stand for principle. Millions of Americans stood up last fall and said, stop this train wreck, this disaster that is Obamacare, that is hurting millions of people. The Democrats said, the mainstream media said, they said this is hopeless. Don't you understand? Just move on, just accept it. You can't do anything to stop this. Yes, we can.
Welcome back, folks. Thank you so much for listening. This is The Ray Warner Show. I am your host, Ray Warner. If you want to email the show, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, or feedback for me, feel free. The email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. Now, this has to have the White House in an absolute tizzy. George W. Bush is now higher in popularity than Barack Hussein Obama. That has to have, Obama must just be, there's got to be people patching walls in the Oval Office. He just has to be having an absolute fit over there to think all that work, all that time, all that energy, all that effort that was put in by the liberal media to destroy President Bush. All that effort they put in, all the lies they told, all the name calling they did, all of that for years to just pummel and pummel and pummel poor President George W. Bush. And it's all wasted. All of that was in vain. It's all gone. And at the same time, of course, they're praising and lifting Obama And here we are, George W. Bush is more popular than Barack Obama. Now, what's even more interesting is the way that CNN reported this. I found this article on CNN's website, and this is how CNN reports the fact that George W. Bush is more popular than Obama. Now, as I read this, ask yourself if it's making sense, or if you think what they're trying to do is, accentuate anything they can to confuse you or to make it sound like, well, it's really because of what they think about the country, and, just keep that in mind. President Barack Obama's job approval numbers are sinking as American attitudes about the nation's progress have taken a turn for the worse, according to a new CNN ORC poll. A majority of the public once again say things in the U.S. are going pretty badly, and disapproval of Obama's job performance has climbed back above 50% as well. What? Didn't they just say things are going badly? But Obama's approval rating has climbed back above 50% as well. See, there's like a kind of a contradiction. According to the poll, 52% of adults had a favorable impression of George W. Bush, 43% unfavorable. When Bush left office in 2009, only about 1/3 of Americans said they had a positive opinion of him. This new poll presents a notable shift, as Bush's overall favorability has remained well below 50% for much of his time as a presidential alum. Overall, 47% say things in the country are going well, 52% that they're going badly. That's a reversal from March, when 53% said things were going well. The highest share to say so during Obama's presidency. The shift comes across partisan and demographic lines, with no one group's opinions driving the overall change. While it's dropped since April, going from a near-even 48% approved to 47% disapproved split to a negative tilting 52% disapprove to 45% approve, the rising disapproval ratings come across party lines, from both men and women, from whites and non-whites. I mean, now they're really getting into the weeds, right? Talking about how whites and non-whites compare. But you see, it's just like a jarble of numbers, and you're trying to read this. Really, what the article is saying is George W. Bush is more popular than Barack Obama right now. That's what the article is saying, but it's trying to say it without saying it. And I just think that is so funny, how they twist and turn and spin and do everything they can to confuse you, so that by the time you're done reading, you're really not sure what to think of it all. And of course, they just keep throwing number after number after number at you, and that just makes it all the worse to concentrate as you're reading it. Now, off the top of my head, at least one candidate in this presidential race voted to confirm Loretta Lynch, and that is Lindsey Graham. Now, here's an article from Breitbart. Obama's DOJ to circumvent Congress with more than a dozen new gun controls. You like the sound of that, America? Obama's Department of Justice is working on more than a dozen new gun control regulations it plans to begin implementing apart from Congress. Some of the regulations are set to be put in place by November, others simply by the end of the Obama administration. The regulations range from new restrictions on high-powered pistols to gun storage requirements, and the issuance of new rules expanding criteria for people who do not qualify for gun ownership. Part and parcel to this new criteria will be an ATF-implemented ban on gun ownership for anyone, quote, convicted of a misdemeanor domestic violence, end quote. Well, that's going to be most of your police force right there. How's that going to work? Isn't that what happened to Bill Clinton? Remember, he wanted to do something about if you've ever been convicted of domestic violence, you can't have a gun. And that was like half the cops in America, so that was a big problem, and they had to do away with it. Gun Owners of America's Michael Hammond warns that under this rule, the person barred from gun ownership could be someone who spanked his kid, or yelled at his wife, or a wife who slapped her husband. The new regulations will also include ATF enlargements on mental health-based gun ownership bans. Hammond summed this up by saying the Obama administration is trying very hard to disqualify people from owning a gun on the basis that they are seeing a psychologist. So just the very fact that you're going to counseling, maybe you're going to marriage counseling, they're going to look at that negatively and say, well, you can't own a gun now. This is what's coming down the pike, people. This is all coming out of the DOJ, what Obama wants to get done. We already know he'll work around Congress to get something pushed through that he knows is unpopular. We already know he'll do that. You think he won't do that for your gun rights, to get your guns taken away? Of course he will. Mitch McConnell is another one of those senators who sided with the liberals and confirmed Loretta Lynch, just FYI. So Loretta Lynch has your Second Amendment rights in mind. This is probably going to be something she's going to be heavily trying to do, is take away your gun rights. Now, this is also from Breitbart, and I threw this in because it goes with the other story very nicely. The article, the headline says, an armed citizen stops attempted mass shooting in liquor store. How many mass shootings occur across the United States? We think about Columbine. We think about this crazy guy in Aurora, Colorado, who went in there acting like the Joker. We think about Virginia Tech, the Massapequa Massacre, all of these shootings that take place. Fort Hood, yeah, is another good one. Thanks. On May 31st, an armed citizen pulled his own gun and opened fire on an alleged attacker inside a Georgia liquor store, thereby ending a would-be mass shooting. The incident took place in Magnet Bottle Shop in Conyers, Georgia. Surveillance video from the liquor store shows 36-year-old Jeffrey Scott Pitts allegedly entered the business just before 5 p.m. and opened fire. He appears to randomly shoot at anyone in his path, but turns and leaves the building when an armed citizen off camera returns fire. This is what happens under constitutional law when used properly, with an armed citizenry allowed to keep and bear arms as the Constitution is designed to allow, and defend themselves and others. You got a crazy guy, goes into a place and starts shooting up people. How many times have we seen this story? Sandy Hook. Here's another one. And here we have another case of an armed citizen putting an end to it. The Rockdale County Sheriff, Eric Levitt, said, quote, I believe that if Mr. Scott did not return fire at the suspect, then more of those customers would have been hit. It didn't appear that he cared who he shot at or where he was shooting until someone was shooting back at him. So in my opinion, he saved other lives in that store. He ultimately referred to Scott as a hero, and he was a hero. Levitt then explained that after Pitts left the liquor store, he allegedly returned to his parents' home and shot and wounded them both. Police then closed in on him, and Pitts allegedly fired on them, and with an AR-15, no less. He was killed shortly thereafter by police. So this guy, he must have been in it for the long haul. Here he goes, going to shoot someplace up because he's gone crazy. He ended up going home and shooting his parents, and then when confronted by the police, he ended up shooting at them. And so here you have a story of an armed citizen putting an end to the violence that this guy was going to carry out. That's how you stop a bad guy with a gun. That's it for this week, folks. Thank you so much for listening again today. Don't forget, if you want to email me, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, any feedback from me or the show, if you have any problems with something I've said, or if you have something to offer, feel free to drop me a line. The email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out the opinions page. Lots of great articles there. And now on the website, there's a place where you can donate. If you like what the Ray Warner Show is doing and you want to help support it, feel free to drop a little donation in there. We could use all the help we can get here. And don't forget, I don't know how you listen to the Ray Warner Show and to the Ray Warner Quick Reports, but there are many ways you can listen. If you go to the RayWarnerShow.com website, you can subscribe and you'll get a link in your email. You can also subscribe at the Ray Warner Show YouTube channel. Every show is posted there. Every show is also posted on Facebook and on Twitter. You can like the Facebook page or follow us on Twitter and you'll get the show. You can also get the show and subscribe or download at iTunes. You can also download from the website, theraywarnershow.com. However you listen, thank you so much for doing that, and we will see you next week, folks. So long.